Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson today. We're listening to the case mystery missing Marsha, true crime. Be back.
I'm raising my family here. My parents raised their family here. Their parents raised their family here. It's a place that I like to go home, and hopefully this will grow away. Little Tennessee is beautiful. Known as the city of the spirit. You can't swing a ball back without hitting church. A lot of people know one another, and we do have a lot of older homes and a lot of history here. And I'm very proud of our town. I've been a hairdresser for over 30 years. You have certain clients that you kind of click with and you're closer to. And for me, Marsha was one of those clients. She was fun. She was outgoing. She was one of my favorite cousins. She did confide in me, and I confided in her. She was beautiful. She was always kind. She loved her husband. She mentioned him every time. When I think of her, my first few words would not be giving, loving. I didn't see a lot of that from her, even as her stepdaughter. How would you describe her? Loner. I believe that she was very depressed. In case it sounds like 48 hours mystery, Brownie had a woman disappears without a trace. It struck me. Oh my goodness, she's not been in. That is odd. And I said, what time did I get? She's overdue. When Marsha disappeared in June of 2009, her husband, Donnie Brantley, did not report her missing. It's hard seeing my father in this way. It's a scary thing. I know the inside of this man and the heart of him. He wouldn't hurt anyone. He loved her. Yes. And they had a real marriage. Yes. During the years of your marriage, am I correct that you maintained romantic relationships with persons other than your wife? Talk about counseling, please. We have a guy who's told numerous lies about where his wife went, and we can prove otherwise. He may be the singularly most dishonest defendant I've ever dealt with. Authorities have not located Marsha's body, but were able to charge her husband with premeditated first-degree murder based on evidence. Well, I think we have a very circumstantial case. There's no blood, no fingerprints, no DNA, no body, and there's no crime scene. What proof is there that she's in fact dead, as opposed to gone missing or living someplace else? I felt compelled very, very wrong. He murdered her. He murdered her. That's crazy. So ridiculous. Charging you with first-degree murder. Do you understand what the charge is? It's just not him. He's 100% innocent of these charges. If he did do something to her, and if I just let this go, he'll get away with it. Hours. Missing Marsha. You ready to go? We're ready for trial. We're actually not going to be able to answer any questions. Justice may finally be at hand for Marsha Brantley, a 50-year-old runner and animal lover who disappeared in 2009. In February 2018, Marsha's husband, Donnie Brantley, has come to court, ready to stand trial for allegedly murdering her. This is a very important day for Donnie Brantley. Very important. He's had a cloud of suspicion hanging over his head for 9 years. Back in 2014, when 48 Hours first began investigating this case, I wanted to have just a moment with you all to Marsha's Aunt Medra and cousin Jenna met with Steve Crump, who was about to take over as District Attorney General. Ultimately, I believe we will be able to do justice in this case. We're just looking forward to bringing this thing to a close. We're going to create within this district a cold case working group. Crump raised the family's hopes that he could win a conviction in a case case guaranteed to be an uphill battle for the prosecution because Marsha Brantley had simply vanished. We don't have a crime scene. We don't have a dead body. We don't have what you normally think of in terms of a homicide case. As the years passed, Jenna and her husband Mark became frustrated that there would never be justice. It's a tragedy. It's something that no one should have to experience or no one should have to go through. What do you think?
What happened to her? Will we find her?
It's a good question, especially since the man they believe knows what happened to Marsha has, in their opinion, never offered to help. Not a phone call, not an email, not a text message,
No,
not a postcard, nothing.
none of her family.
Did he organize any search parties? No, he proffered no help. She was the love of your life, right? Yes. This civil deposition in 2013 shows that Donnie likely will never have much to do.
This is the home where Marsha and Donnie lived for 9 years.
Jenna and Medra went into the house in 2012, 3 years after Marsha went missing. They were upset by the chaos they found.
Somebody had no respect for her, and we know who that was. And Donnie Brantley is going to pay for what he's done to her. There was not a picture of Marsha to be seen anywhere.
And there were pictures of Donnie and his daughter, but none of Marsha.
Growing up, Jenna was especially close to Marsha, her older cousin.
She would come and pick me up from high school sometimes, and we would go get ice cream.
From a young age, Marsha had an endearing passion for pets.
She had her favorite little dachshund named Barney. She taught him how to pray before he ate his meals. He would cross his little paws.
As an adult, Marsha volunteered at a local animal shelter.
I looked up to her when I was a little girl. She was 5'10".
Kim Shake was Marsha's closest friend.
Even though she seemed to command the room, she was probably one of the more shy people to be that commanding with her physical presence.
She was a friendly person, a sweet person.
Especially to her parents. She grew up in an affluent family, an only child with no children of her own.
She took care of her mother a lot because her mother was ill for a very long time.
In 1999, Marsha met Donnie Brantley on a dating website. He was a divorced father of a teenage daughter.
She called me and she said, well, I've met someone, and was getting really serious, and she said, I want you to meet him.
Marsha and Donnie shared a love for the outdoors. She was an avid hiker, while Donnie was a competitive bicycle rider. At 41, this was Marsha's first serious relationship.
He was what I always wanted for her, somebody that she could be into and love and share her life with and live on happily ever after.
Marsha even wrote poetry for Donnie. With love so pure and true, I can but only thank my God I fell in love with you.
Marsha.
Donnie's daughter Elise was happy her dad had found a soulmate.
When we would sit and watch movies on weekends and that kind of thing, they would hold hands.
They were married in 2000 and moved into the house Marsha's parents had built for her. But shortly after the newlyweds settled down, tragedy struck.
Her mother passed away in November 2000, and her father passed away in December.
Imagine losing both your parents in less than a month.
She was devastated. There was a lot of sadness. It was heartbreaking.
I saw a different side of her when she lost her parents. There wasn't a lot of happiness after that.
But Marsha did her best to man business franchise. She also quit her job as housing director at nearby Lee University to pursue her passion.
She wanted to write young adult novels.
She was very talented and definitely had what it took to be successful.
Reggie J. and Nancy Grill were members of a writers group that Marsha formed in 2007. What was the name of this writing group?
Thunder Rock Writers Group. The other name was the Big Girl Panties Group. We would critique each other's work, and we would say, put your big girl panties on because, you might get your feelings hurt.
Nancy and Reggie say Marsha was the best of the bunch.
Dirty Little Secrets is a story that Marsha wrote. The sun rose above the kudzu-covered trees. I swept the house and chased the dust out of the front door and across the porch with a broom.
Wonderful imagery.
Mm-hmm.
She could write this one.
Yes.
But in June 2009, a dark chapter began in Marsha Brantley's life with a plot twist right out of a novel.
She seemed to fall off the face of the earth. I knew that something was very, very wrong. In her 30 years as a hairdresser in Cleveland, Tennessee, Kelly DeLude says cuts, perms, and parts are only part of the job. As a hairstylist, are you also a therapist? We're in their personal space, so people certainly share with us probably a lot than they would the clerk at the grocery store. But of the hundreds of clients Kelly has cut and consoled over the years, there has been only one whose face haunts her dreams. When I would go to sleep at night, I would think of Marsha. And when I would wake up in the morning, I would think of Marsha. Marsha Bradley first came in for a cut in the year 2000, and the two came together like scissors and hair. What was it about Marsha that made the two of you click? We just got along. We would just talk the whole time. We would just sort of catch up with one another. She really spoke mostly about her home life with Donnie and her dogs. Her dogs were like her children. Kelly says Marsha couldn't say enough nice things about her marriage and her husband. As the years went by, the two women grew closer. But during what turned out to be Marsha's final hair appointment in April 2009, Kelly saw a side of Marsha that left her concerned. She seemed troubled. She seemed in the business here. And I said, certainly, it had, and she said, well, it's really affecting our business. Marsha told her Donnie's handyman business was failing and money was tight. Still, she expected Marsha to call about 6 weeks later to set up her next appointment. You're very regimented in coming to see you. Yeah, she colored her hair, so most women are, sure, yeah. But Kelly never got that call. She was too busy to notice. But as spring turned to summer, Marsha's neighbor stopped into the salon. She said, Kelly, when was the last time you did Marsha's hair? And I said, well, look. And I looked at my phone. I said, April, that is unusual. Is she okay? And she said, she's not been walking her dogs. They are barking their heads off, and her flowers were dead in the yard. And when she mentioned that, it struck me. Oh, my goodness, she's not been in. That is odd. Odd enough, says Kelly, that she was moved to pick up the phone. I called Marsha. The call went to voicemail. She left a message, but didn't hear back. For days, she called again and again. No Marsha. One night, I decided, well, I'm going to call Donnie and ask him if he knows where Marsha is. I actually called Donnie's business, and the phone was disconnected. So that really concerned me. Marsha's neighbor was concerned too, so much so that she decided to confront Donnie in person at his house. She literally went up, knocked on the door, and when he answered, she said, Donnie, where's Marsha? And he told her the most ridiculous story. She's leaving me. She went out west. Had she ever talked about trouble in the marriage? No, never. For Kelly, it seemed inconceivable that Marsha would suddenly leave the house her parents had built for her, leave behind her beloved dogs, and most of all, leave the husband she adored. Or what do you think? I'm thinking at that point he has done something to her. I knew that something was very, very wrong. I had no peace about it. And so finally I thought, I'm going to call around. And in my mind, I thought, I'm crossing a little line here into meddling. You've become a detective at this point. You're gathering information. You're calling various people, right? Well, I was, but, I wasn't trying to be a detective. I was trying to be a concerned friend. Kelly found a member of Marsha's writing club and got more disturbing news. But she told me that Marsha was no longer coming. One of the strangest things about this case is that for months, nobody reported Marsha Brantley missing. Her relatives, they live on the other side of the state. Her best friend hang out socially. In the end, it would be her hairdresser who tipped authorities to a potential murder. I came into work the next day and I called the Cleveland Police Department, and
I said, I need to report a missing person. And he said, excuse me, are you her mom, her sister? And I said, no, actually, I'm her hairdresser. He said, well, ma'am, if he says she's gone and that she left him, she left him.
Undeterred, Kelly turned to the best social network she knew, her customers. And you can cut and talk at the same time, right? I'm good at that.
For 30 years.
Kelly chose a person who was long on brains under all that short hair. Local attorney Jerry Hoffer.
He couldn't get away, so when I was cutting his hair, I said, Jerry, I'm going to tell you a story. And when I get finished, I want you to tell me what you think.
I was listening to the stories, and I'm just sitting there thinking, this guy's might have killed his wife.
And I felt like finally justice is going to be done.
Right after I got my hair cut, I walked in the DA's office, and I just kind of flipped him away. I said, you got that lady out there, you got what they're looking for. Prosecutors agreed and sent their investigator, Walt Hunt, now retired, to Marsha's house to look for her. When I approached him, he told me that they were having some marital issues. But it wasn't just what Brantley said, it was how he said it that really caught Hunt's attention. He was pretty cool and maybe a little cooler than I might expect.
He said he was cool, calm, steady as a rock. He said that is not normal.
Hunt's instincts convinced him to call the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. They would launch what would become a 9-year coordinated effort between state and local agencies, all dedicated to finding Marsha Brantley. It was around October 2011, and I jumped at the opportunity to be able to assist with the investigation. When Zach Pike and David Shoemaker of the Bradley County Sheriff's Office got the case in 2011, they quickly saw why Donnie Brantley was a suspect. He had always denied any role in his wife's disappearance, but he lied when he claimed that Marsha had taken her phone. I think her cell phone in his possession is easily, in my mind, the most damning fact. The cell phone never left pinging from a tower that's 2 miles or less from the home. In June of 2009, right around the time investigators think Marsha disappeared, they say Donnie used her phone to make a highly suspicious call. He calls on that cell phone the Chattanooga singles line. He calls it dating interest. Investigators say he couldn't seem to keep his story straight about his old love, Marsha. She took a camper and moved to Townsend, Tennessee. Going to Florida, going out west to work as a missionary. Every time somebody asked what happened to Marsha, it's something different. They were all lies. If Marsha had left, investigators were struck by what she had left behind. All her clothes, her shoes, documents important to her, and the baby book that her mother had compiled for her, brushes, toothbrushes, all that's still in the house. She left her car. Importantly, she left her house. The one her parents had built for her. And that doesn't make sense. If Donnie Brantley did kill his wife, they say a look at the family finances may provide a motive. He was financially supported by his wife. They say Donnie's failing business franchise was draining Marsha's inheritance. She would have cut him off from the money. What was the state of their marriage in those last months prior to Marsha's disappearance? There was a little bit of tension, obviously, with the money problems. And investigators soon unearthed phone records that revealed Donnie Brantley had begun calling an ex-girlfriend within days after Marsha disappeared. Yes, Stephanie Richardson. Yes. Okay. Stephanie Richardson. Okay. Lee Davis is Donnie Brantley's attorney. There was no affair with Donnie while Donnie was married to Marsha. There was an intimate relationship that started after Marsha left. And there was other suspicious behavior. Authorities discovered that just hours after investigator Hunt had interviewed him, Donnie went to a pawn shop and sold a number of Marsha's possessions, including 14-karat gold cross, a Pharaoh necklace, a Pharaoh bracelet, a herringbone necklace, and a Toshiba laptop. And there was something else Marsha left behind that friends and family say she valued more than all the material possessions in the world.
Marsha loved her dogs. They were her kids.
Would she have ever left that house without her dog?
No. Never.
In March of 2010, authorities asked Donnie Brantley to take a polygraph test. Surprisingly, he accepts. How does he do? Fails it. Fails it. Flying colors. Then, during that 2013 videotaped deposition, Donnie refused to answer or said he couldn't recall more than 100 times. Are there other items of hers which you sold when she disappeared? Substantial evidence helped convince police in August of 2013 to arrest Donnie Brantley and charge him with the murder of his wife. Donnie Brantley is now an inmate at the Brantley County Jail being held on a $500,000 bond for the first-degree murder of his wife, Marsha. But after 7 months behind bars, Donnie is freed when then-prosecutor Steve Bebb decides he doesn't have enough evidence yet and drops the charges. The family had told law enforcement they didn't feel good about going forward with it at this time, and they wanted to try to get more evidence.
We didn't think that it was time yet.
Because you get one shot at this. Right. I was interested in from the very beginning. Months later, newly elected prosecutor Steve Crump focuses his legal sights on Donnie Brantley. But it would take another 2 years to arrest and recharge him.
4 cars pulled up and told him to get on the ground. This was pretty traumatizing.
Finally, in February of 2018, nearly 9 years after Marsha Brantley disappeared, her husband's murder trial is scheduled to begin. You're convinced you got the right man? No doubt. The things that he did, the things he said, all point toward a guilty man. How big a case is this among people here? I think it's pretty big for the simple fact that this doesn't happen here every day. People don't just disappear and not be seen for 9 years. Zach Pike and David Shoemaker of the Bradley County Sheriff's Office say as Cleveland, Tennessee natives, the Brantley case hits them close to home. In some ways, is this personal for you? Absolutely. Been many nights I haven't slept. I wonder where Marsha is.
I'm actually not going to be able to answer any questions.
There's no proof that Donnie Brantley murdered his wife Marsha. I'd asked him point blank, if Donnie is responsible as you suggest, tell me how he did it. Donnie Brantley's lawyers, Lee Davis and J.D. Parks Farnell, say their client should never have been charged with murder once, let alone twice.
Law enforcement had tunnel vision, and they had tunnel vision that led directly to Donnie Brantley. And the rest of it, they just ignored.
Who murdered Marsha Brantley? Donnie Brantley. You say the same? I say the same. Where? At her house. At their house. No proof of a crime scene. No proof of a body or an autopsy. Is there a witness in this case? No, there's no trace evidence. There's no blood, no fingerprints, no DNA, no fiber analysis. What proof is there that she's in fact dead? He'll argue at trial that this case is actually about a 9-year-old marriage that, because of financial problems, may have reached a breaking point. To herself time to think. Which is why Davis says it's ridiculous to argue Donnie's failure to report Marsha missing is suspicious. When your wife tells you that she's leaving the marriage, you don't call the police or 911.
She would never have left her family. She would never have left her home. She would never have left her friends. And just disappeared and contacted no one.
Remember, her phone never left the house. He's using her phone after he's told law enforcement that she took it. Yes. Davis says that certainly doesn't help Donnie, but it shouldn't hurt him either. He lied about her cell phone, and that is something that complicated the case. There is a huge world of difference between somebody who lies about a cell phone and proof of a first-degree murder. Nor should it hurt the defense that Marsha left many of her belongings behind, even if Donnie pawned some of them. Davis says he needed cash, but left most of her things alone because he figured she'd one day come back to get them, including her beloved dogs. Let's talk about the dog issue. If you believe that Marsha was murdered, you wish you would never leave the dogs behind. If you look at it from the lens of Marsha was troubled and depressed, or not sure what she was going to do, the one thing she wouldn't do is take the dogs with her. She'd make sure she left the dogs with somebody who would take care of them no matter what, and that's Donnie.
They got those dogs together. They were their dogs. They weren't just hers.
And there was one thing Marsha definitely didn't leave behind, Davis says. She took with her a large amount of money, which was her money, a wad of cash they kept hidden in the attic. And how much money are we talking about? Probably talking between $100,000 and $110,000. Davis says all that money could have been Marsha's gateway to a new life, away from her husband and Cleveland, Tennessee. Donnie's lawyers also claim that all those stories he told about where his wife may have gone were actually suggestions once he realized she truly was missing. In the state of Tennessee, there are 283 missing persons cases open right now. Though a civil court ruled that Marsha is deceased, her name can still be found on the National Missing Persons website. There's one for Marsha Brantley right now that's open, listing her as a missing person, not a murdered person, not a person that they suspect has been murdered by her husband. She's a smart woman who left for reasons of her own.
She was always self-assured and was a leader-type personality.
But a couple of months before Marsha disappeared, Reggie J says the writer's group was stunned by a bitter email exchange with her.
She says, ladies, I just wanted to let you all know that I've been missing for some time without explaining.
When you read that, what'd you think?
I was mad. I thought, how dare you do that to us?
She writes, no, I merely said I'd be missing.
At that point, I truly did think to myself immediately, did Marsha write that?
What would you think, Robin?
Johnny.
But neither side in the legal case agrees with her. The defense says Marsha wrote the email because she was about to leave town. She was separating herself from those relationships that was closest to her. The prosecution says she only sent it because she planned to quit her writing group. And the email itself proves she wasn't actually going anywhere. Later in that email, she says, but you all will see me around. Cleveland is a small town. We'll certainly run into one another. Reggie and Nancy were bewildered and concerned. They remembered around the time of the emails, Marsha, who suddenly lost a lot of weight, said something that now seemed ominous.
And she just made the comment, I've been so depressed I could hardly get off the couch. And I remember doing sort of a double take, looking and like, Marsha, are you okay?
I think that there was a whole lot going on with Marsha that she didn't tell anyone, even the people in her writing group.
If Marsha Brantley had a secret, 48 Hours contacted one of the only people she might have told. Robin Torero is a former pharmacist who worked with doctors to treat patients. She specialized in hormone replacement therapy.
She first came in 2004, in the June of 2004.
Torero says Marsha was going through menopause and was having a tough time, including night sweats and mood swings.
It can be very, very severe.
And in the worst cases, what can it lead to?
Well, I mean, there have been cases known where women did commit suicide during this time.
Torero worked with Marsha's doctor who prescribed medications for her right up to the time she disappeared.
What concerned me more with Marsha was not what she shared, but what she didn't share. That there was a lot more underneath there than she was willing to share with me.
Torero's chart notes show Marsha repeatedly reported feeling depressed, including this passage 1 month before she disappeared.
On May 1st, 2009, patient has been off of hormones since April the 12th, having severe depression.
So Marsha said to you she was experiencing severe depression?
Yes, it was underlined, severe.
And what are the last notes that you have written?
On 5/18, she was having mood swings, sleepless. She was just like this, up and down. You have a woman describes herself as being severely depressed. Those things were disclosed in 2010 to law enforcement, and from all I can tell, they've never been investigated. There was no significant mental illness. I never thought that was the real answer. State investigators revoked Robin Torero's license for unprofessional conduct unrelated to Marsha's treatment. She was never charged with a crime.
Oh, the places you'll go by Dr. Seuss.
What do you think happened to Marsha Brantley?
I wish I knew. I really have no idea.
Did you ever just look him in the eye, daughter to father, say, Dad, did you do this? Did you kill her?
I did not. I knew he didn't.
She's gone. She's dead. Well, he's disposed of her body very well. I know that.
Now, after 9 long years
a jury will hear both sides of Marsha Brantley's mysterious disappearance. This has got to be done exactly right. We don't have any room for error.
A Bradley County cold case from nearly a decade ago heads to trial next week.
But just 2 days before Donnie Brantley's murder trial is set to begin, I've heard you have an announcement to make. Prosecutor Steve Crump, the man who 4 years earlier promised Marsha Brantley's family justice, gives 48 hours some shocking news. We just met with the family, and we told them that we're probably going to be dismissing this case on Monday. Whoa. You're going to dismiss this murder case? Yes. No, this is an unusual case. We're afraid that the judge will enter a judgment of acquittal because we can't prove that Marsha Brantley was murdered. You only get one shot. Crump fears the jury would never get a chance to decide on guilt or innocence, that the judge would rule there just isn't enough evidence to go on and throw the case out. To be charged with murder, dropped, charged with murder, and dropped again. I'm sorry, I just feel like there's some incompetence here, sir. Well, and I can appreciate that. My view of what Donnie Brantley did to Marsha Brantley hasn't changed. I don't believe we have the wrong guy. I don't believe we have the wrong set of facts. This is a legal decision, one that is made as a matter of trial strategy. Crump stands by what he's done. Maybe I should have done it earlier. Maybe I should have seen this sooner. Maybe you're right. Maybe it was incompetence. I'll never stop self-evaluating. But no matter what the outcome is, I better always do the right thing. Hey, Kelly.
Hello.
I have some rather startling news to tell you. There will not be a trial.
Are you serious? That's terrible.
February 5th, 2018, court convened. A day for you, absolutely. That's it, that's where I'm at. Donnie, can I just ask one thing? What's going through your mind after all you've gone through? This is such a big victory for you.
This is State of Tennessee versus Mr. Brantley. General, would you like to approach it? Do you have a motion to make? Yes, Your Honor. I made a decision on Saturday to move forward with this case.
Nearly 10 years after Marsha's disappearance, it takes a judge just 10 minutes to dismiss the case against Donnie Brantley yet again.
At this time, Mr. Brantley is free to go.
For Donnie, a second victory.
I'd like to thank the judge for dismissing the charges. I'd also like to thank my family for all their support during this extremely stressful period. I look forward to putting this difficult time behind me.
For Marsha's family, a second devastating blow in court.
I felt like life had been squeezed out of me.
My family is crushed, and tomorrow's a new day. This isn't the end.
Later that month, the judge orders Donnie's record of criminal charges in Bradley County to be erased. And Steve Crump does something we found remarkable.
So this is from the case file. It is. And this is an extraordinary thing, because generally you don't get to see this pre-trial.
That's right. With Detective Pike guarding the evidence, Crump showed 48 Hours what a jury never got to see. He hopes that by showing the evidence, a viewer may remember something important and call in a tip.
What are you holding in your hand? This is a receipt for a torch kit for a welder.
Receipts for items Donnie bought around the time Marsha disappeared, including duct tape and plastic sheeting.
The man runs a home repair business. We believe that all of these receipts represent preparations for disposing of Marsha Brantley. Disposing of her body. Yes, correct. What do we have here? A greeting card.
A greeting card he says Donnie hand-delivered to that ex-girlfriend he'd been calling.
This was delivered the day after Marsha Brantley disappeared. And what did Donnie write on the inside of this card? Hi, girl, with 2 exclamation points. Things are better for me now. Call me if you can, with his number.
You know how the card got to Stephanie Richardson's mailbox?
on the morning of June the 3rd, 2009, in your handwriting.
I'll play it again.
It provides at least in part a motive. We've decided to drive out to her neighborhood to try to speak to her. I'm going to go up to the door and knock and see if Stephanie's home. Stephanie Richardson is now married. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Peter Van Sant with CBS News 48 Hours. It's really nice to meet you. She disagrees with the prosecutor's interpretation of the card.
I'm sorry, they're stretching things.
Stephanie says she did date Donnie, but not while Marsha was in his life. The prosecutor's claiming that there was an affair.
That's not true.
I would love to ask you just a few questions about that. Would you be?
No. You have to understand, this is my life for 10 years. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Donnie Brentley has gone back home to Georgia, where he's spending time with a new love interest and his grandchildren too.
Getting to see that grandfather side of him is just a whole other very special side. What I want people to know is how loving, kind, thoughtful, and how hardworking he is.
Despite the prosecution's repeated failure to prove Donnie Brentley committed a murder, or even that a murder was committed, they pledged to work harder to one day bring the Brentley case back to court. I've been very polite that we're not going to stop. And so, whatever he feels, relief, whatever he may feel, I wouldn't get accustomed to it.
Well, it helps.
Back in Cleveland, former writing group member Nancy Grill believes Marsha's story may have one last dramatic chapter.
I'm probably the only person in the world that doesn't really truly believe that Marsha is dead.
What?
Do you believe that one day Marsha Brentley may reemerge?
I think it's a possibility.
But sadly, Marsha's family thinks Nancy's hope is pure fiction.
Oh yeah, I think about her every day.
I received a call for possible DOA at this location. I'm Detective Dennis Frawley, New York City Police Department, retired. Of course, I had very little information to go on. As I came in, the first thing I noticed was how clean this particular apartment was. I was directed to the bathroom. Now, as soon as I came in, there was a little dog protecting whoever was in that bathtub. And I thought to myself, perhaps this person fell a home accident. And I noticed she had terrible injuries on her head. Towards here, right by the drain where her feet were, I found several empty ice bags. Interestingly enough, on top of the toilet tank right here, there was a large electric fan. And the fan was on, the breeze blowing through this window, which opens up. Now the scene's starting to come together for me. And I said, you know something? Somebody tried to preserve this body. I told the lieutenant, we have a crime scene. Seal building, no one comes in, no one goes out. Her name was Daniel Thomas. It's, you can't bring her back. I can't bring her back. That's obviously.
Our lawyer, Jason Hahn, an Ivy League educated listened from the beginning, now charged with murder, company for allegedly bludgeoning her to death and strangling her.
He beat her so badly that he broke most of her ribs, broke her sternum. You just kicker, he was stomping her in the chest.
He was not your normal suspect. He'd become an attorney and had attended an Ivy League school. I've been covering crime and law enforcement in New York City for 3 decades, and it's very rare that the murder victim turns out to be a very successful executive for a company like Weight Watchers.
I identified her through a photo, and I can close my eyes and I can see that photo still.
Jason has taken my only child from me.
I've seen many murder scenes. You gotta move beyond the emotion. I had to dig. And when I did dig into Jason's life, there is no doubt that he is suffering from a mental illness. So I turned to Dr. Sasha Bardet. Harvard education, is one of the best forensic psychiatrists that I have seen. My job is to climb inside the mind of the killer. In other words, I have to dissect him. My mother was in the process of giving us up at the age of 9. Based on mental illness, I believe that Jason Bond should not be held responsible for murder. Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, we have. It's absolutely ridiculous to believe that because his mommy didn't treat him necessarily as well as she should have, that somehow 15 years later, he's not responsible for the torturing murder of his girlfriend. He was caught virtually red-handed. We have a tape of him telling her. It's one of the worst things I've ever heard.
It was the horror that happened here, among the neighborhood streets of Astoria, Queens, with the glittering Manhattan skyline just off the river, that made one of the great city's best detectives, Dennis Raleigh, decide he didn't want to be a cop anymore. This set the bar on. But you covered thousands of cases. Not quite like this. So many. Not quite like this. It was early summer 2012 when cops at the precinct just around the corner got a tip over the telephone, and investigators rushed to this apartment.
The door was open, but it didn't look like it had been broken in any way.
Assistant District Attorney Marilyn Filingeri took in the image of the broken body of a young woman.
She's in the bathtub. Her head and her face are covered by her hair.
Forensic dog that had been standing watch, already removed. I'm just examining, looking, for an injury, maybe a fall. But in minutes, the cop knew this was no accident. It's almost as if someone held her down and hit her head. Or maybe he did this with the... The apartment was now a crime scene. This was murder. Pure and simple. And it was vicious. And someone had already tried to manipulate the evidence. That fan venting the smell. Those bags of ice now empty and drained. That threw the time of the crime scene off by maybe 12 hours. How long do you think the body was there? Probably over 6 hours. Detective Frawley soon learned the battered young woman was a vibrant, successful New York City professional. But there was something else, something gnawing at the veteran cop. And it was a terrible realization once he learned her name, Danielle Thomas. I remember that. I remember that awful day. 27-year-old Weight Watchers executive Danielle Thomas had been on the NYPD's radar for weeks before she killed, starting with an incident in May between her and her boyfriend, witnessed by neighbor Sherette Corson, who called 911.
Silent operator 677 is the emergency. There's a altercation going on next door to me where the guy seems to be forcibly holding the girl from leaving.
And then I saw her run out, and then he kind of chased her, grabbed her back into the apartment.
Did she say anything as he was pulling her back inside the apartment?
No, she was just screaming.
But that night, May 24th, police never connected with Danielle. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, when she came into Detective Frawley's precinct, that police heard her story. Danielle told police her boyfriend, Jason Bond, had beaten her up that night. Her neighbor called 911. In the 114th precinct, Danielle Thomas showed police her still black and blue bruises. That's when Jason Bond called Danielle's cell phone, and she put him on speaker right in front of police.
And they heard him on speaker, yelling, like a man, very angry, very upset.
Lead prosecutor Patrick O'Connor would soon review the details of that call. What did he say?
He said, I'm going to make your life impossible. I'm going to hunt you down like a dog in the streets.
This is war.
This is war.
Jason Bond would be arrested and charged with assault, but Danielle would eventually refuse to cooperate. Still, police tried to help her. I pointed out to her that the right thing by coming to us, and the courts will protect you. You have an order of protection. This was that order of protection given to Danielle Thomas. Police had no problem finding it just a few feet from her lifeless body, along with a bouquet of flowers and handwritten notes from her boyfriend, Wall Street lawyer, 33-year-old Jason Bond. What did the note say?
One of the notes said, "Danny, I will love you forever. Jay."
She just loved adventure. She loved skydiving. She went swimming with the sharks, bungee jumping.
Fearless.
Yes, she truly was beautiful inside and out.
Danielle's grandmother Juanita and mother Jamie live in a world changed forever by the loss of a child they both adored.
When she was a little girl, I told her, Danielle, just shoot for the stars. And she said, I'll do that now. And she did.
She graduated the University of Florida with an MBA and was soon working as a revenue analyst at Disney World. They were boyfriends.
Danielle always dated what she always said, Mom, always married at a football game. I think a friend introduced them.
Danielle met an intense young man, a lawyer who also seemed to be shooting for the stars.
That's what she looked for, is intelligence and ambition.
His name, Jason Bond. This was a whirlwind romance.
Yes.
Danielle wanted her family to meet Jason and pay for them all to take a Disney cruise. Jason turned on the charm. And when you were with them together, how did he treat Danielle?
He always called her his princess. He never took his eyes off of her. I just thought, they were in love.
Then in March 2012, just 5 months after they met, Danielle followed her new boyfriend up to New York City, taking a job as an executive at Weight Watchers, and moved into an apartment with Jason in Astoria, Queens. But Danielle's mother wanted assurances about Jason and was thrilled when a trip was scheduled to Tony, Greenwich, Connecticut to meet Jason's mother, Maureen O'Connell.
I even bought a new dress for the occasion, because Jason's mother was the chief financial officer of Scholastic Books. I wanted to make Danielle proud.
But at the last minute, Danielle told her mother the visit was off.
She just said, we're not going. That was it. And that dress that I chose to meet Maureen in, that's the dress I wore to Danielle's funeral.
What her family didn't know was that Danielle's world had become a hell, caught up in a gruesome web of domestic violence.
Why didn't she tell me? Why couldn't she tell Mom or me?
Searching for safety, Danielle was staying in hotels or with friends, but she eventually began living with Jason again. And on June 23rd, Danielle suggested drinks with Jason and his work friends here in a bar near New York's famous Times Square. As the night grew late, they'd argue. Danielle would confide in one of Jason's friends that he was abusing her, and she would be urged to spend the night in a hotel. Then Danielle remembered Jason had threatened her dog.
And goes home because she's afraid for her dog.
So to protect her dog at 2:15 a.m., Danielle Thomas walked back into their apartment. Just 16 minutes later, she dialed 911. The phone call is chilling.
911 operator for the emergency. 911, hello? 911, hello? Hello, man? What was the answer?
Called 911, and the police failed to respond.
That really hurts me at night.
It's not clear precisely what happened, but that would be the last time the NYPD had a chance to save Danielle Thomas. And the next time I saw her, she was dead. Hours after brutally beating to death his girlfriend Danielle, Jason Bond is at the local Rite Aid store, shopping for cleaning supplies and ice.
He was trying to buy time to extricate himself from the situation, figure out what he was going to do. By putting the ice in the tub, putting her body in the tub. Neighbors
wouldn't smell her body for some time.
Prosecutors say Jason picked up Danielle's BlackBerry and, pretending to be her, sends text that she's just walking the dog and indicates that she has not seen Jason.
Saying that everything's okay and she's the night at her friend's house. So, we think that one of his initial attempts was to set up an alibi that he wasn't even there when she was killed.
Then, with Danielle's lifeless body in the bathtub, Jason flees New York, drives through New Jersey. Surveillance cameras show him at an ATM in Washington, D.C.
He ended up in Chicago, I believe.
At one point.
But while it looks like Jason's trying to get away with murder, his lawyer Todd Greenberg says something entirely different was going on.
It was not running away from this. He wrote a letter, he makes an admission.
Jason left a letter cradled in Danielle's arm in the bathtub. It reads in part,
"It was an accident. It was an accident. It was an accident." And Jason continued, "I'm so sorry."
Evidence, Jason's lawyer says that Jason wasn't trying to hide anything. And remember that phone tip the police responded to and found Danielle's body? Well, it was Jason who made that call.
There is no hiding this crime. There is just no hiding this crime.
So, what was Jason doing?
He was contemplating suicide, and he was biding time.
Jason's defense says he accepts that he killed Danielle, but doesn't actually remember doing it, and that can be very important at trial. Jason says he remembers arguing with Danielle, grabbing her wrist, and maybe even pushing her, but not much more. After his arrest, he told investigators what happened the next morning.
Waking up and my head was spinning. I was still in my clothes. I went into the bedroom. She was unconscious. I picked her up and ran her to the bathroom. Stripped off her clothes and drank cold water on her and tried to revive her.
Slowly, Jason says he understood he must have killed Danielle.
Just started crying hysterically.
He left this message for an ex-girlfriend.
I'm in serious trouble. Danielle and I went out together on Saturday night. We both were got intoxicated, had a disagreement.
Memory about the murder could be symptomatic of a serious mental illness. Dr. Alexander Sasha Bardet is a Harvard-educated forensic psychiatrist and a consultant for the TV show Law and Order SVU.
I spent a total of about 6 or 7 hours with him over the course of 3 different sessions.
Now, working for the defense, he spoke with Jason and others who know him. What conclusion did you reach?
I concluded that Jason was suffering from intermittent explosive disorder.
What is that?
That is a mental illness characterized by bouts of loss of control and bouts of anger and bouts of violence. I described him as the Hulk. I mean, this is a metaphor. The metaphor is for someone who is 1 minute calm and rational, and then, because of some trigger, turns into an angry monster.
I mean, it sounds preposterous.
It sounds preposterous.
But Dr. Bardet says it's very real and supported by hundreds of documents from Jason's childhood, including psychiatric reports. And they draw this startling conclusion. This Ivy League graduate was an abandoned child.
He developed a mental illness because of his genetic background, because of his experiences as a child, because of the trauma that he endured.
And Dr. Bardet says that trauma begins with Jason's mother, Maureen O'Connor, the wealthy, accomplished executive at a children's book company who lives here at this Greenwich, Connecticut mansion worth almost $3.5 million. But it wasn't always that way. Maureen O'Connell was once a pregnant teenager living here in the Bronx. She married Jason's father and had a second child, Jason's brother. But Jason then claims his mother was ready to move on.
My mother kicked my father out.
And from the age of 3 to 9, his mother gradually disengaged from Jason and his brother.
Jason was primarily in the care of his grandmother, who may have been schizophrenic.
She used to talk to herself and pee on the floor. There were imaginary people that she dealt with.
Then when Jason was 9 years old, his mother remarried.
She completely severed ties and turned her back on Jason and his brother, wanting to put them into a group home.
Instead, Jason was sent to live with his father in Miami, and the story he told social workers is heartbreaking.
His father turned out to be an abusive, crack-addicted man who abused his sons emotionally, physically, would point loaded guns at them.
Put my hand on the stove because I told him I turned the stove off. And wasn't turned off. And then another time, he was drunk, brought out a shotgun, so I ran.
Jason says he called his mother for help.
I was telling her that my father was beating me. She would say, oh.
But his mother was never going to bring Jason to live with her. Instead, she found an apartment to rent in Westchester for Jason to live again with his grandmother.
I was hanging out with bad kids and stealing stuff. Just angry that I wasn't going to be living with my mother.
His grandmother moved to an assisted living facility. At 14 years old, Jason was living alone until authorities got involved. Court papers were filed. Jason is a neglected child, left alone without adequate food to sustain him.
My mother was charged with neglect and abandonment, and I became a ward of the state.
Maureen O'Connell submitted papers of her own, saying Jason was verbally abusive, brought knives to school, requested he be placed with social services. Jason would spend the rest of his youth in group homes. One psychiatrist noted, Jason is seething with rage and shows resentment, especially in regards to his mother.
And records from the group homes repeatedly document efforts to engage his mother in Jason's treatment. And consistently, the records indicate that she refuses any involvement. She's too busy with her work. She can't come to a meeting. She can't be part of the treatment planning. She can't be part of any assessment that has to do with her son. She just didn't want to have anything to do with them. And Jason knew this.
Then a miracle happened. Jason met this man, Dr. John Piacenti, who himself overcame a rough childhood. He encouraged Jason to get a GED and go to college. Jason got a scholarship to Columbia University, the Ivy League. He became a lawyer, but his deep-seated anger, his defense believes, never went away.
The rage at 13 years old that never left him, and that was exhibited again on the night of the murder.
The defense will argue Jason believed Danielle was going to leave him, just like his mother did. It was too much for him, and because of his mental illness, he snapped.
Patently absurd to believe that he somehow lost control and killed this young woman because of that past trauma.
What's more, prosecutors say, they have evidence Jason was not suffering from mental illness when he killed Danielle, and they have tape to prove it. Prosecutors Patrick O'Connor and Marilyn Filingeri still can't quite believe it. They know Jason Bond brutally beat Danielle Thomas to death, but Jason's defense is claiming he's mentally ill. His anger stemming from his mother abandoning him almost 3 decades ago.
It's ridiculous, and it makes a mockery of the judicial system. This is why people have a problem with science, with psychology's ability for our actions.
I've covered thousands of cases and I've heard all kinds of creative defenses.
Veteran crime reporter Murray Weiss is a 48 Hours consultant.
This case was an extraordinary one. The tabloid newspapers had a field day with this case. They called it Blame It on His Mother.
But intermittent explosive disorder is not something Jason's defense team has made up. It's been listed in psychiatric manuals for 30 years, and 3 doctors, including one who works for the prosecution, say Jason suffers from it.
Over the years, Jason Bond exhibited some deeply violent and disturbing behavior. It ranged from choking girlfriends to flying off the handle at people over insignificant things. There was even an incident where a friend of his put his feet on his table, and he became so intensely angry about it that his pupil took over his eye and went completely black. One of his friends even recalled the time when he talked to him about his mother, and he would suddenly go from being this nice guy into like Jekyll and Hyde.
But Jason never killed anyone before.
He ended numerous relationships before he met Danielle. Why is the relationship with Danielle different?
I thought it was different because it was a deeper, more profound relationship, and they had begun to speak about marriage and a life together.
A woman who he thought wouldn't leave him like his mother did. And strangely, a woman who his mother really liked.
After he went to law school and he was involved with Danielle, his mother came back into his life.
Jason says out of the blue, his mother contacted him, apologizing for what happened in his childhood. He says his mother even offered to help Danielle with her career.
And having his mother back in his life was a very much a mixture of emotions for him. On one hand, he was still the child that really wanted his mom, but at the same token, having her back in his life reignited a lot of the anger he still had, in my opinion, murderous rage toward his mother, that was turned to Danielle on the night of the murder.
In the weeks leading up to the murder, Jason was violently threatening Danielle. He sent her a series of emails accusing her of repeated lies and broken promises.
I think it all around whether she was reacquainting herself with a prior boyfriend.
Evidence, Bardet says, that he feared Danielle was leaving him.
It's pretty clear that Jason felt that Danielle was lying to him.
On the morning before the murder, Jason says they fought again about Danielle's ex-boyfriend. Then, after a night of drinking, Dr. Bardet believes Jason, in the throes of mental illness, lost all control and killed her.
Do you think he is mentally ill?
No, he's just a person who has an anger issue. He could control it if he wanted to, but he has a problem with doing that.
Ultimately, prosecutors say, it doesn't really matter whether Jason has this illness. It's whether in the course of murdering Danielle, he was actually suffering from it. And they believe they had the proof he was not.
What we have here is strangling Danielle Thomas, killing her.
They call it the pocket dial.
I can't breathe. I won't leave.
At some point in the process of him killing her, her phone was activated.
And a recording of Jason killing Danielle was made.
She speaks in a very calm voice several times throughout the tape saying, listen, Danielle, you don't have a lot of time.
It's extraordinarily graphic, so 48 Hours has decided just to play a small portion of it.
You have 5 seconds. I'm going to let you off, and you need to answer quickly or else you die.
Danielle Thomas on this tape is begging for her life. She's being strangled repeatedly, and at various points she's saying that she can't breathe. She repeatedly claims that she loves him.
What's worse, the recording was made an hour after Danielle called 911. That means, prosecutors say, Jason was attacking Danielle for at least 60 minutes.
There's 7 seconds on this voicemail recording that's silence. That's a period of time when you hear Snoozer, her dog, bark 2 times. That 7 seconds of silence is indicative to me that the defendant had his hands around her throat and was strangling her to the point where she couldn't even make any sounds. He taunts her that you're so stupid, you think I'm going to stop. I won't stop. It made me sick to my stomach. Her last seconds were nothing but horror. And I can't imagine.
It was the prosecutor's smoking gun, evidence, they say, that proved Jason Bond knew exactly what he was doing that night. And he took his time doing it.
This tape is going to be the crucial piece of evidence. It is.
You have 5 seconds. I'm going to let you off, and you need to answer quickly or else you die.
Defense attorney Todd Greenberg concedes that Danielle Thomas's pocket dial voicemail is chilling. But he hears a different story in that recording.
When I heard that tape, I heard howling. I heard shrieking from Jason. It's almost like somebody else coming out of him.
At trial,
He's on trial 18/3 of 2012, Jason Bond.
Greenberg hoped to persuade jurors that when Jason Bond was beating and strangling Danielle, he was overwhelmed by his emotions.
Jason Bond is a classic case of intermittent explosive disorder.
Jason Bond should have a reduced degree of responsibility because he suffered an extreme emotional disturbance.
It's a viable psychiatric illness that people suffer from.
Psychiatrist Alexandre Sasha Bardet is a key defense witness.
You hear him strangling her and then stopping, telling her she's going to die in 5 seconds. It sounds like someone who is in control to me.
Being out of control doesn't mean you're just screaming gibberish and waving your arms and flailing around. You're just doing something that you really shouldn't be doing, that you don't want to do, that your rational reason would tell you not to do, but you can't help yourself.
Despite all of Jason's achievements, says Dr. Bardet, despite that law degree, Jason was unable to overcome his horrendous childhood.
He grew up thinking that he was a worthless individual. His own mother abandoned him.
Maureen O'Connell, the financial executive at the heart of the defense's case, is a no-show at her son's trial. Yet surprisingly, she's the one footing the bill.
The mother did retain good development. I will say that she stood behind him at this trial, even knowing what the defense was going to do.
Jason's mother declined her request for an interview. Her spokesperson says Maureen O'Connell is horrified by this tragedy, and her heart goes out to Ms. Thomas's family.
Did you have an opportunity to interview her? She declined. I met her, but she did not want to provide any background or history of her own.
Were you surprised that she was paying for his defense?
I mean, it's unfortunate. I think it's a little too late. I mean, I think none of this, I believe, would have happened if his life had been different early on.
Many people who survive horrific childhoods don't go on to being a killer, right?
Of course. Right. But in Jason Bond, and that's what we're talking about here, that childhood caused him to suffer from a mental illness.
Greenberg is not asking jurors to let Jason go free. Instead, he says they should convict him of a lesser offense. But Richard Brown, the district attorney, says once he heard that voicemail and realized what happened in that apartment, the state had only one option.
The voicemail confirms in your mind that this was murder, not manslaughter? Certainly so. And it fits very clearly in the definition of murder in the first degree, which is a torture murder. The victim's tortured prior to being killed.
The prosecutors who report to Brown point to a text message that Jason sent to a friend just a half hour after that voicemail ends.
I just wanted her out of my life. She's been nothing but trouble. He actually was able to type on a phone using perfect grammar, punctuation on the she's been nothing but trouble.
Jason knew exactly what he was doing. There's not a doubt in my mind. I got a Christmas card from Jason expressing how sorry he was.
I cried till my eyes bled, he told them. I don't even remember our fight that night. I have had mental and emotional issues since childhood.
Do you believe that he could not recall killing your daughter?
Oh, I believe he remembers it. I believe he does.
But what will the jurors believe?
I am a very firm believer the environment of the child has a lot to do with what he becomes.
What did you think of Dr. Bardet's testimony?
I thought that he was helpful in trying to get us to understand.
The stakes are high. First-degree murder could mean life without parole.
How do I feel at my age?
But prosecutors say manslaughter could mean as little as 5 years.
You never know what a jury is going to do.
Jason committed the most terrible murder when he took Danielle from Jamie and me.
Danielle Thomas's family, who relocated from Kentucky for the 7-week trial, have been waiting for some sense of closure for nearly 2 years.
I was so emotional.
Now, after deliberating less than 2 days, jury forewoman Elena Rodriguez takes a final vote.
We went around, everybody was yes, yes, yes.
And with that, the jury returns.
Jason Bond, please stand.
My heart was pounding out of my chest.
On the first count, murder in the first degree. How does the jury find the defendant?
Did the jury find the defendant guilty?
Jason Bond, Ivy League grad and Wall Street lawyer, guilty of first-degree murder.
Jason Bond, please be seated.
Jurors, in the end, decided he tortured Danielle, enjoyed killing her. That chilling 911 call and voicemail recording of Jason murdering Danielle proved crucial.
No one considered manslaughter?
No. Nobody went for that one.
Because they just didn't believe that Jason, while in the midst of an extreme emotional disturbance, lost control for some 60 minutes.
I feel he would have been in control if he would have grabbed her by the neck, and that's it, finish her right there. Then that could have been like a moment of madness. But when you release and you go again at it, right there, there's control.
We did get a just verdict and just
Women of faith.
my Bible teaches me that I have to forgive.
Danielle's mother and grandmother hope they can forgive Jason.
I think it would help me if he would show some remorse, if he would.
Today is the sentencing for Jason Bond.
5 weeks after the verdict, on a cold, rainy morning, everyone gathers back in the courtroom. Yes, first, Danielle's family gets the chance to confront Jason.
I'd like to be able to see Jason.
To look him in the eye and show him their heartache.
You murdered Danny while she was gasping for breath and begging for her life, Jason. Only a beast, Jason, could have done to her what you done to her.
They beg to know how he could choke the life out of the woman who would have married him.
Jason, 3 weeks before she died, I asked Danielle, if Jason were to propose, what would you say? Jason, she immediately said, I'd accept, with a big smile on her face.
Before the judge imposes his sentence, Jason's lawyer implores him to consider his horrific childhood the root of his mental illness.
Jason's life was one of physical abuse.
To this day, he points out, Jason lacks any loving support.
I look around this courtroom, Your Honor, and I'm noticing, as I get throughout the trial, that there is not one person who is here for Jason Bond.
Now, just as Jason is about to learn his fate, he stands, and to everyone's surprise, addresses the court for the first time.
Danny and I were best friends. Definitely into her. Yeah, Mom, we're my adopted family.
Then, turning to Danielle's mother and grandmother.
Yeah, Mom. I don't know what to say. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. I don't know how to say it.
It's the moment they've been hoping for, but the judge shows no mercy.
As far as this court is concerned, with respect to murder in the first degree, you are sentenced to the rest of your natural life without parole.
35-year-old Jason Bond will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Before being led away, he again turns to Danielle's family and mouths an apology.
He said, I'm so sorry, I love you. In my heart, I feel that Jason meant what he said. He showed remorse, I think, for the first time today.
For Danielle's mother and grandmother, it's the beginning of their journey of healing. While Danielle's life was cut down so